Today, my friend, we're going to be diving into the subject of sexual energy and sexual energy cultivation. Okay, so a little bit of a disclaimer before I dive into this. It's going to feel like, or may be perceived of, as being a little bit one-sided to the male point of view. And the reason for that is because I'm a man. And when it comes to sexual energy cultivation, there are definitely nuanced distinction between men and women when it comes to this process. And it's such an intimate, intricate process to be exploring. And it will naturally feel like it's coming from a male point of view within this video. But I'm going to talk about men, sexual cultivation, female cultivation, but it will feel more so because just generally, because I'm a man, I have much more experience within the point of view and experiential makeup of a man. Sexual energy cultivation has been a real powerful part of my journey. And I sometimes may feel like I repeat that quite a lot with different things. I have very poignant moments of powerful moments where it feels like it's been such a valuable ingredient to the recipe of my healing journey. And understanding sexual energy came really when I was in the pits of despair when it came to my sexuality. When I had a nervous breakdown and everything broke down in my mid-20s, I was suffering from very chronic sexual dysfunction going on. There was really chronic things going on within my life force and sexual energy. One, I basically didn't have any any life force. I had nothing. It was just felt like I was at the point of maximum depletion when it came to my nervous system. And it was from that moment there was this like breaking apart and this like realization and these sprouts coming up of things to discover, things to research, and cultivating my sexual energy was one of them. In my mid to late 20s, I started to get information and downloads about how to cultivate my sexual energy. And that really began with starting to practice things like semen retention and working with my reflex of masturbation, ejaculation, and these intimate parts of being a man. And due to my nervous system and where it was in this extreme place of chronic shutdown and depletion, it was really essential for me to start increasing my life force and my inner battery. And that chronic state I was in of shutdown, the habits that were intertwined with that were really, really dysfunctional and unhealthy. One of them was my relationship with masturbation. It was very, 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 very dysfunctional. I remember from an early age having a really intense, highly active sexual energy. I remember having a really highly charged sexual energy within me. And because of my development and how that all intertwined and evolved, especially through puberty, I remember having this really intense, powerful sexual energy feeling within me. But because of my development, and now I've learned about brain development and when it comes to delayed gratification, and when you go through trauma or anything like that, and I don't want to explore what my trauma was or anything like that. I only need to look at how my habits and behaviors were and how dysfunctional they were. And one of my most dysfunctional relationship habits was, one of my dysfunctional habits was to do with masturbation. I had this really high charge of sexual energy, plus I had the incapacity to delay gratification due to my brain development, which then led me into this addiction-like quality and feedback loop of overusing that aspect of my male habit. And both men and women can masturbate for sure. But for men, I feel it feels a little bit different. There's this real primordial thing going on within us. And if that isn't nurtured from an early age, it can go absolutely haywire. I think that's a word, just make that a word. And for me, it did. puberty really messed me up. It really threw me. This increase in that energy, the incapacity to be able to delay gratification, be able to delay that process, and just feeding into this really dysfunctional habit. Plus I was massively insecure. Plus I was massively socially awkward, unable to communicate, unable to be intimate, having this highly charged nervous system as well, which was in extreme fight or flight. It's so dysfunctional. I can't, like, just reflecting on it now, it's bringing up, like, wow, these memories of my past self, and just sending out so much love to him, man. Like, love to my past self for him processing through that. Like, wow, it was real deep. It kind of it led me into the pits of despair, essentially, in my mid-20s. For the ages between, say, early teens up to, let's say, my early to mid-20s, that development phase was absolutely chaotic in many, many ways. And we're pinpointing this today, like talking about sexual energy. And it's such a wide topic, sexual energy. And I'm going to be zoning into different facets of that. And at the moment, I'm just tuned into that habit that I had. And it was so poignant, so crippling and so dysfunctional that it did lead me to this. It was part of the ingredients of me having a nervous breakdown in my mid-20s. And then I started to learn about, from the pain, from that dysfunction, drove the action to figure out this part of me, this energetic side of me, which was totally out of control. Needed to be healed, it needed to be worked through, it needed to be resolved. And I started to find out about sexual energy. I started to understand about my inner energetic battery. I started to find out about Taoism, and in Taoism they talk about energy cultivation very, very intimately. And before I even knew about Taoism, I didn't even know the word Taoism, I was just finding out about this way to keep hold of my life force without expending it. It's time to heal that dysfunctional habit of masturbation that I had from such a young age, and really heal that. And those Eastern teachings from China and India, and those esoteric teachings really helped when it came to that process. I started to learn about that, how to retain my sexual energy, how to not go to my dysfunctional habits. And I'm telling you now, it's just like, it was years of figuring that out. It was a slow process, but it started to give me that capacity to feel my inner battery fill up and reserves to fill up, to come out of that state of depletion. And this was very intimately connected with my healing of my chronic shutdown freeze nervous system state that I was in at the time. And it was very much a part of this process that I'm talking about now. This understanding how to cultivate my sexual energy was so intertwined with my ability to come out of shutdown freeze, to really start tending to my inner energetics and that inner battery, that life force battery that just wasn't there. It had years of dysfunction, over a decade of chronic dysfunction and dysfunctional habits that had completely wiped me out. And learning about sexual energy really kind of pulled me out, started to fill that battery up. I start to understand what life force feels like. I start to feel intimately, very intricately, this energy working through me, feel this. The byproduct of this filling up feeling came with the capacity to have more confidence, more energy, more reserves, being able to communicate better. We're talking about on a real cellular level of healing. I mean, we're talking about being able to just how I'm expressing myself in the world was completely transformed once I started to heal this inner fire within me. As soon as I started to balance out, and in Chinese arts and Chinese philosophy, they talk about the elements, and you could think about fire and water, and they start to even out these elements within me, an even scale of fire and water going off, which started to cool my system down. Had the right amount of fire within me, which was then channeled into passion and purpose. We start to learn about transmutation. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about sexual energy transmutation, and I've experienced that subjectively. The transmutation of sexual energy, we take this life force. Once we start to learn not to expend it unnecessary, we start to build them reserves, and through our attention and awareness, we channel that into our life. To try and make that practical to you and less esoteric, we start to channel it into our relationships. And when I say channel it into our relationships, it starts to resolve all discord. And we could talk about the qualities of sexual energy, and life force are intertwined with the characteristics and qualities of the God of unconditional love, which Jesus spoke about. It's that essence that we could call it Kundalini, we can call it life force, we can call it however you want to label it. It's the byproduct of that is more and more experience of harmony within our life. We start to experience more harmony. We start to see discord being resolved. And this energy is working through us, and it's channeled and focused by our attention. We harmonize with this energy. And because it's our life force, it comes with that. It's like in Taoism, they talk it this, there's this yang aspect, which is the spark of life. It's this yang element of us which can create more disruption within us when it's out of balance. But once we start to channel this yang energy, and we start to cultivate it, and we start to learn about it within us, and we start to develop our attention, we can then start to be very sophisticated with what we do with it. There's this simmering down. We come away from the fight or flight response, which too much, if it's not a nurtured life force, sexual energy, it can actually throw us more out of balance. And these are other precautionary measures if you decide to pursue this. And I recommend everyone pursue this. I recommend men and women to pursue this aspect of themselves, because even whether it's man or woman, we're talking about the same energetic qualities within us. We're talking about the yin and the yang within us. And it's that yang aspect that is the part of ourselves that would be more so feeling out of control within our culture and society that we're in now. And especially we talk about men and their journey and how they are at the minute. We're talking about serious and chronic levels of dysfunction and out of harmony-ness. And I've experienced the resolution of things on a very profound degree. The sexual dysfunction that I experienced in my early 20s to mid 20s, where it was at its probably its most damaging. Through this process, I evolved past this, healing my relationship with masturbation, which then evolved into something really beautiful and ceremonial and done with love and so much intent. It guided me into Tantra, where I learnt about how to channel this with the partners that I've been with. The relationship that I was last in, there was this development and healing quality of that. And the discovery of this life force energy that was being circulated within me on a really intentional way, in a very conscious way, but then bringing that into a relationship. And when we talk about relationship development, this is such a deep layer when we start talking about your energy body, when we talk about each individual's sexual energy and how their attention is cultivating their sexual energy, and what's that like when it comes into this union factor, because we're each as individuals creating the space for union within us. And it's from that space of inner union, the harmonization of the yin and the yang aspects, that we then bring that into the nourishment and union with another. And that's why it's so important. If you're single now, get on this journey. Start understanding your different states of arousal. Start to understand your capacity for pleasure. Start to melt the shame that's around this. And this will bring, just me talking about this now can potentially bring up the feelings of shame around this. We live in a culture, potentially more so in the West, where sexuality and sex and masturbation is just not spoke about. It's not a thing. It's still under the carpet. It's still shied away from talking about and about expressing, but when really it's one of the most important parts, one of the very most important parts of this human experience and our self-expression journey, how to be intimate. Our capacity to be intimate all comes from our development of our sexual energy and our own cultivation. Our capacity to be intimate with ourselves, to be in a position where we can be totally intimate with ourselves, that we can be with ourselves in a sexual manner and feel no shame, no condemnation around being in that position of being human, this such innateness, this beautifulness of being human. And once you start to get on this, you'll start to be amazed at how much energy you can create within you on your journey. What you once thought was high energy will be very peripheral to what's the truth. Once you start to get your head, your body, your mind and energy around this journey. And there's so much to resolve. It can feel like there's so much to resolve. It can feel like there's so much to resolve. We've got to resolve our impulses, our habits that are not healthy. We've got to shine light on the habits that we have, that we want to nurture loving, aligned habits. We can talk about how we are with things like self-pleasure and masturbation, and start to be and feel into that. And how are you with that right now when it comes to being with your body? And that's why, and I'll repeat it again, I implore you to start journeying through this. Start to research this. Start to feel into your journey where you are right now when it comes to this side of yourself, which can be very, very much repressed and suppressed. Parts of ourselves that we want to become aligned with, we want to start embodying, but we feel that shame, those roots of shame around this area. And it's extremely healing, whether you're on your own or when you're with a couple or in a couple setting dynamic. I've journeyed through both of those, and they've both been equally healing. On my own as a single male, and as well as that as with my partner. And when you bring this knowledge and experience into a dynamic, you'll be amazed at how deeper and intimate and more richer that whole experience becomes because of this. Sending you so much love, my friend, on your energy cultivation journey. Go have fun, explore, let go of that, or start the journey of letting go of that shame around this. Any wounds that are happening around this, start to feel into that and start to explore today. Sending you so much love, my friends. God bless. Peace out, and I'll see you all in the next video.